Pick up your Dragon Ball Figuarts at BigBadToyStore at the link in the description. Let's slap a new coat of paint on it and call it a new review. It's STR Remastered. Hey there, collectors! It is Steven here, and welcome to an STR Remastered review, where we take an older figure that I took a look at some years ago, and we take a look at it now, but in 4K. Today we're going to be taking a look at the SH Figuarts Super Saiyan 3 Goku. This figure just got reissued, and I figured that it would be a great time to not only say figure again, but to also take a look at a new release on the market, at least it would be a reissue, and take a look to see how it holds up today. Now, this is going to be the original release of the figure, not a reissue, so do keep that in mind. Now, when this figure was initially released, it was criticized, and even by yours truly, for having a couple of issues with the paint, and maybe even with the articulation. But how does that really hold up today? The original review, for, proper archive purposes, and so this way you can go ahead and call me on anything that you see, will still be held up. But based on how he is now, let's take a look to see whether or not he's worth adding into your collection. I will say right off the top, there are a couple of things with Goku's paint apps which, upon release, folks weren't necessarily too happy about. Those being that all of the faceplates that Goku comes with, there is going to be quite a significant shiny yellow, almost gold paint app to them, and then going into the actual hair, that is sort of lost. I'll go in and expand on that in just a minute. Goku's shading on his clothing as well seems to be just a little too heavy-handed, especially in the waist down to the upper thigh area. Now, other than that, the only other critique is that his smirking face looks like there's a little bit too much paint pulling up in his smirk on his left cheek. Realistically, that's going to be it. And even then, the stuff that I talked about, really, really minor. If you take a look at the source material, it is very clear that the front of Goku, the hair, it is going to be a bit stronger than the back of it, and it's clearly notable. It definitely is shining a bit more, and then it sort of fades off just a little bit. So that little bit of a subtle detail, maybe from unit to unit it is a bit different, but I do think it works rather well here. And then for the shading, quite frankly, yes, I will give it that much. I will say that for the actual sculpted parts, not the joints, we do see some rather heavy shading, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not necessarily too bad. Maybe a couple of drips here and there need to be taken care of, but you know what? Taking a look at the current action figure climate and what some of the more recent releases have done at a more expensive price point, I do think, comparatively speaking, it's not really something to write home about. And of course, we do have the Halo, which I don't really know how they could do better, but hey, it is what it is. Overall, for the looks, yes, I will say that maybe the one that you get won't necessarily be perfectly clean, but I do think that for what we get, I do think that Goku looks rather fine. Super Saiyan 3 Goku. This, yes, we did have the Awakening Goku, which was a renewal, but this, my friends, this is where the renewal body for Goku really kicked in. And oh boy, did we have some stuff to go over back in the day. And quite frankly, I still think that the body type holds up even now. Now, when this Goku released, a lot of folks were upset because there were no possibilities of head swapping, realistically speaking. So the head plugs into the neck on a different style joint system. There's no ball joint here. We do have a hinge which allows Goku's head to move forward and back, up and down like that, and then a swivel that plugs into the neck from side to side. Now, that obviously shows a fantastic, amazing range of movement, but in practice, when you have the head or the face attached, you do suffer a little bit of movement loss there due to the faceplate slightly, just ever so much, popping out. So that's a little bit of an issue. Now, the neck does plug in on a ball joint, so this way you can move it around. Now, that whole system is different than all of the other Gokus released afterward that do not have the super duper Saiyan 3 hair, which will feature some ball joints in and of itself. So you can see there's a little bit of movement there at the base there, and then this part moves as well. So you can twist and turn Goku's hair as if he's fighting in the air or on the ground or whatever the case may be. So yeah, you can get some fun action poses out of all of Goku's hair. But anyway, all of the other Gokus released afterward, like the Super Saiyan Blue renewal, Saiyan Raised on Earth, Ultra Instinct, they all have swappable heads. Ball joint you may need to fiddle with a little bit, This Goku, you have to replace the whole neck system because even the inner chest parts, those are different. But the rest of the figure pretty much remain the same, except for a couple of small parts that needed to be changed, like the V-cut and so forth. So what else do we have? Well, this Goku is going to have very limited butterfly hinges to allow the arms to move forward and back at the shoulders. So there's that. The shoulder pads, they are on ball joints, which that's pretty much been the staple since the original Super Saiyan Goku released way back at the start of the line. The shoulders, they do have ball joints where the arms plug in, where the butterfly hinges. So this way we can move the arms around, and then they're going to have hinges as well. Taking into consideration the shoulders, that is about as high up as the arms are going to go for a T pose. Now, we're going to have bicep swivels, which is great, and a double hinge elbow. Now, sometimes the hinge that is closer into the bicep can be a bit more difficult to move, so that is about the effective range of movement for that double hinge. For the wrists, we are going to have a swivel hinge combo where it plugs into the forearm, so we can spin the wrist around and get hinge movement in one direction. And then the hands are actually going to plug in on ball joints, so this way they can move just a little bit as well. But effectively, it's just going to be swivel movement forward and back. For the ab crunch, it is going to be a ball joint, which we can twist and turn. Do take note of that. And unfortunately, on this one, there was a little bit of a plastic lip here that did scratch up the figure here. So just something to keep in mind to check for any additional flash markings or anything like that, so this way your figure doesn't get damaged. I unfortunately didn't see that in time. We do have a waist joint, which is going to be a ball joint, which twists and turns, and a little bit of rocking forward and back. The hips are going to be double swivels. They kick forward and back about that far, so that's great range of movement. If you ever pop these legs off at the hip, you're going to see that they do plug in on a ball joint, so you do get a little bit of rocking, but realistically, it's just going to be swivel movement. And then, for kicking out to the side, realistically, that's about as far as you're going to go. You can turn the thigh swivel and get a little bit more movement, but over the years, when they've redone this Goku body, they've sort of changed up the hip design here and there and everywhere, and they've allowed for just a little bit more range of movement. I know back in the day, a lot of folks said that I was a little too harsh on this, and then other reviewers were just as harsh. And then Bandai changed the overall hip design. So, double knee hinge, which is great. Nice range of movement. And then we do have ball jointed ankles, which do allow for ankle rocker movement, which is very good. That's about as far down as far up, and a single toe hinge. Now, one of the big deals about this figure is a lot of folks like to say that he can't stand, and that's why you need the support stand, which if you just kind of plop him down on the table, look at that, he can. Admittedly, that is going to happen if you don't really know what you're doing, but realistically speaking, if you do pose him in a more screen accurate pose from the anime, hip's going to be out, chest is kind of sort of going to be even with the waist sort of going back a little bit. Goku stands just fine. There are no real issues with that. So for the articulation, I do think that Goku is pretty cool, and he can take some neat poses, especially from the anime. You know, you want to get sort of like a dragon fist, you can definitely do that. Wrong expression, but hey, you know, it is what it is. And this set the standard for Goku moving forward. They haven't really touched the body. All right, let's go ahead and talk about accessories, which Goku does come with quite a few of them, but at the same time, no effect parts. Goku's going to come with some alternate faceplates and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of hands, and good on Bandai for this, they included a Tamashii support stand. Act 4, yay! All right, let's look at those alternate faceplates, and we get some good ones here. That's me putting the tray down. So, Goku is going to come with a teeth gritting face and some narrowed eyes. Very cool. I like this one. Really shows his anger expression. Great. Now, Goku is also going to come with a faceplate, which you have already seen, of him looking off to the side and a more so serious expression. I would have really appreciated for this release if they would have included one where he's looking straight on, because I know this release, and I'm sure others do as well, for it to be a bit more serious. That Super Saiyan 3 to me, there's not a whole lot of positive emotion or happy emotion. It's all serious. We're here to fight. And yes, looking to the side, that is iconic to the initial transformation in front of Boo, but come on. Now he is going to come with the screaming face, and the eyes are too big. They're like nearly comically big. All right, let's go ahead and move on over to those optional hand parts, and we, like I said, get 5 total sets. We are going to get the sort of karate hands where he's got the 2 fingers and the thumb up. Pretty cool. We're going to obviously get the Kamehameha hands. We are going to get left and right instant transmission hands, the 2 finger guns, if you will. We're going to get left and right chopping hands, which is great, and left and right splayed hands, which are not the Kamehameha hands. I do personally feel that these hands with the fingers going way back maybe need to be adjusted with the fingers going forward a bit more, but then some folks will say that's the Kamehameha hands part. C'est la vie, it is what it is. Overall though, we get the stand included, and I think this is great. Obviously we get the halo as well, but I already talked about that kind of at the top, so yeah, I think the accessory count for Goku is rather rock solid. I will say, though, that I do think that at the time that this was released, there was a nice gap between when we had an actual Kamehameha effect, and it would have been cool to have another Goku packed in with that. Or, even if they were to just straight copy and paste the aura effect from the original 1.0 Super Saiyan 3 Goku release, that would have been cool as well. I do feel like maybe they could have thrown something else in here to really seal the deal, but such is life. Now, if you do need some extra accessories, effect parts, support stands, so on and so forth, I do have videos to help you out there, including a video where I give you some tips to maximize your Goku display in what I call the ultimate display. Now let's go ahead and move right on over to a size comparison so you can see that this Goku is going to be setting the trend for the default 2.0 Goku body, and size-wise, yeah, he's going to be as big as all the other Gokus you have in your collection, except for the hair. He's got some real big hair. So, buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. Once this figure was released, there was a lot of lukewarm reception. There were a lot of folks who thought that this was not going to be a figure to pick up because of too heavy shading here and there, laughable face plates, and they didn't feel that the hair was painted too well. Personally, I think that a couple of those critiques were rather valid, but really overblown. Now, after it went off of the main market and into aftermarket, everyone was complaining that they needed to have a reissue. And then once the reissue came, it sold like hotcakes. So if you are looking to pick this up, definitely, whether it's going to be the first release or a reissue, it is an absolute win, and unless they're going to do a 3.0, this is going to be the Super Saiyan 3 Goku that we're going to get. Quite frankly, I think it is a rather rock-solid release, and all these years later, I can definitely appreciate it for a better figure than maybe what it was when I initially took a look at it. It does have its flaws, but I do like it. Just wish they would have improved it, especially for the price tag. Well, collectors, that brings us to the end of the video today, and I just wanted to take a second to thank you so much for watching. Now, you've heard a lot from me. I'd like to hear a little bit from you. Drop in the comments down below whether or not you liked it, you hated it, or maybe you were somewhere in between. I also want to take an extra second here for a nice, humongous thank you to all the patrons for STR over the last month who have really helped the channel grow into what it can be today. So to all of you, 2 big thumbs up. Thank you very much. And now the end card should be popping up, which will give you a few clickable links, like maybe to subscribe or head on over to my Patreon, or some short URLs like to my social media or to my Teespring store. There's also a video I hand selected for you, so if you want to watch another STR video, I hand selected some good content for you to watch, so definitely check out that video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll catch ya in the next video.